Welcome to the Pastors Podcast. This is Pastor Scott, and with me are Pastors Matt, Jim, and Brian. And who are all excited to be here.
We're so excited to be here. The energy in this room is like electric.
It is.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's coming from one source.
Yeah.
Jim Leonard. James Leonard, the man, the myth, the legend, is with us today.
Yeah, and I had lunch, so I have actually probably more to say.
You had some sort of shake, vanilla shake.
That's true.
Lunch for Jim Leonard is ice cream shake.
A little chocolate in it, just for energy.
Did you really have a shake? What was the actual lunch?
I forget what those things are called. It's a shake, right? It's a shake, and then
That's what you have for lunch.
You actually had
You actually did.
The
We make
cookies.
this joke constantly that all you eat
Yeah,
is...
Wait, is it McDonald's? Like what? Is it McFlurry? What are we talking about?
I think they're health cookies, but they're chocolate health cookies.
Yeah. Chocolate health cookies.
What?
Oh, that's great.
Probably like the
Right,
eighth
Jim.
wonder of the world is the fact that you are not 400 pounds and like serious diabetes. The amount of sugar you eat, I don't even understand it. It's because you're probably running around like crazy all the time.
I have a dog. It's
Yeah,
probably the reason.
chasing Chai around
Chasing little Chai.
and a son.
So today...
Welcome to the Pastor's Podcast.
So today...
I told you electric. Did I
we
say
are
electric?
going to... That's one word for it.
Yeah, you can feel the electricity.
So today we are marking this week the 10-year anniversary of Cornerstone.
Gosh, I thought it was 11. It's 10? It's only 10? Oh,
Feels longer, huh?
it does. A lot longer.
It's been 10 years since the First Baptist Church of West Los Angeles and Shoreline Community Church merged together and formed Cornerstone Church of West Los Angeles. It was Easter 2011 was our first. I'm trying to remember even. Was Easter the first service together?
Yeah, it was the first
Is that what
one.
we did?
Yep, that's correct.
Easter 2011 was our first service together in late April. And so we are marking 10. We've been doing this for 10 years, Jim. How you feeling about it? Should we keep it going?
I think we should keep going.
That's good. I was worried you were going to say shut it down.
It's
Let's
been
try
a
it.
good 10 years.
10's a nice round number.
Does everyone know? I don't know if everyone knows, even listening, that this church was originally started 1901.
That's correct.
So 120 years. It's been together for 120 years. I mean, not as Cornerstone,
Yeah.
obviously with the merge and everything, but
As the First Baptist Church of Sawtell.
Sawtell.
Of Sawtell.
It was a town in those days.
it
Yeah,
wasn't
it was
even
an
Los
actual town.
Angeles until
No.
1922. I'm not asking you because you were there. You were
I
not
think
there.
it was 1918, something
Okay,
close
something
to that.
like that.
You're not far off.
World War I style.
Yeah.
That's
And it started on a school building, but then the school caught fire and burned down. And so they moved next door and to another building. I think it was an office building. And there was a flood. Nobody knows this, but where the what's the thing up there with the old soldiers' home and all that?
The VA.
The VA, thank you. Where the VA is, I honor those guys.
Yeah.
Was a lake. It was a lake for water, to give so everybody to have water. And
There was a lake at the VA?
There was a lake there.
Oh, wow.
And
Wait, like to give water in terms of agriculture? Like
no,
to drinking water?
Town, yeah.
Holy cow! Okay.
And
No, but it wasn't at the VA. This was pre-VA.
It was actually it was beyond the VA. Is what
okay.
I should say, because it served the VA was the first thing out here. That's what
it
the town
was.
formed around.
It
The town
was
was
for
working
Civil War
employees.
veterans, right? Moving
Yes.
out here?
And then the town was the employees working there, because the nearest place to live was 12 miles away. It was Los Angeles. There's nothing between here and there. But anyway, the dam broke because it was done by a corrupt contractor, and so that flooded the church. And so the church suffered fire and flood in like the first few years. Almost didn't make it. So
but it
But it did. But I guess
We're 10 years farther along than that.
yeah,
So,
I mean that's
yeah.
not to give away the end of the story.
I was going
but
to say
here
we just had a
are.
flood, but I'm not sure the leaks
We
that
did.
the leaks in our office can constitute
the same as a dam
dam
breaking.
Not
yeah.
quite the same, but close.
But I bring it up because it's interesting to think about. 10 years is a long time. It's a long time for any church, and a church merge it's like a really significant period of time. But in our case, that's 1/12 of the history of the church. We are at just one portion of sort of God's faithfulness this last 10 years. So the original question was to you, Jim. So I'm sorry for cutting you off.
What was the original question? Long since forgot.
No. So I mean, I wanted to take an opportunity. I think anniversaries oftentimes provide this, whether they're relational ones, organizational ones like a church family like ours. Anniversaries just provide an opportunity to reflect on the last 10 years and all that the Lord has done. And I think particularly this year, right? It's really easy to just think about this year, think about the things that have happened this year, things that God's done this year. But oftentimes I think when we pull back a little bit, we see the massive ways God has moved and is moving in our midst. And so I just wanted to create some space so that we've been sitting around a table like this. Even the four of us have been sitting around a table like this for 12 years now, since we started talking about this. And so I just wanted to provide the opportunity to reflect a little bit on what the last 10, what has stood out to you about the last 10 years, about what the Lord's done over the last 10 years. So yeah, Jim, why don't we start with you? Why don't we put you on the spot? And Matt can interrupt. You just all you have to do. You just have to get 3 sentences in. That's all you got to do.
I don't need your permission to interrupt.
That's an
I'll interrupt
interruption,
one
but-
way or the other.
I think one of the things that stood out to me from the very beginning was that you renew something, and right away there are people who don't like it. They're complaining that it wasn't the way it was before.
Uh-huh.
And I think I was so excited about this.
Are you still complaining that it wasn't the way it was
But you
before?
know, I write letters.
Those are from you?
You're
all those anonymous letters.
you're JL. You only signed them JL. We were supposed to get that after all those years.
It seemed obvious to me that it was, But
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you do not want it to go back to how it was.
Believe me, I do not want to go back to those days.
You were making a point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
was
no
a-
interrupting, Scott. Unbelievable. Can you believe this guy, Jim?
Well, what can you do?
Yeah.
So where was I? Oh yeah. So there are people who were saying like, I liked it the way it was before, and I'm saying, yeah, but here we have a new church, a new congregation. We have a nursery. We were talking about this in the last podcast. Nursery and toddler's room full of children, which we didn't have before. And it looks to me like we're really, we're doing great. But people are saying, well, I didn't like the music this way. I didn't like the music the way we used to do it. And if anybody is thinking about doing a merge, I think the first thing you should say is to the congregation is, all right, this is going to be different, and I don't want any complaints.
That's a great way to open. Like Pastoral Leadership 101.
That's right.
All right, everybody.
This is the way it's going to be, and I don't want any complaints.
Really selling it hard.
I will turn this car around.
I was going to say, I'm ready for this. I have a lot of practice. On lots of long road trips. So...
Yeah.
Oh man.
So I think my first recollection is that there were these people saying, well, it's not like it should be. Somehow it wasn't. You've changed everything. Yeah, that was the idea. That's what you voted for. What were you thinking?
All right. So Jim, what were you thinking
When you said yes.
I just love the positive spin on everything. It's just
I was just going to try to steer us a little bit. I was going to say, Jim, what have you enjoyed the most in the last 10 years?
Hold on, though. As we go there,
Yeah.
it's worth noting Jim's perspective on this is very unique. Not in like the way you sort of like, what did you expect? The fact that we were very young when this happened. especially in the eyes of many people who were your age, who were at the church.
Yeah.
And I think as I look forward and I think about, okay, when I've been doing this for 30 years and all this change starts to come around, am I going to be like Jim,
On the back of some 30-year-olds.
Yeah, like how? Yes, of course it's going to change. Let's embrace what God's doing. Or am I going to be like, nah, we kind of had this dialed in. Like, there's a really intriguing perspective that you have that allows for that entire mindset. All the things that we find kind of humorous, but also the fact that like that's rare. And I think that one of the things that has characterized the last 10 years has been a kind of embracing of, not just from you, but from all of us together, of like, what is God trying to do here? We can't hold on to the things that that happen to fit our preferences per se. Yeah. We really have to look at what God's doing. And in some ways, I think I and you, Scott, and you too, Maddie, like we had a theory of that. You know, like we had we wanted that, but we'd never really been faced with a decision to do it in ways that really cost. Yeah. And you, Jim, brought some of that. Like, watching you do that was incredibly helpful, because it was like, oh no, we're all doing this together. Like, we really are doing this, and we really are seeing God do something new and trying to embrace that without enforcing our own preferences on it. So I think it was really powerful in the midst of all the humor we're finding. It's because of a perspective you have that I think is actually rare, and I hope that we continue to have going forward.
It's not just your perspective; it's your humility too, right? Like, it's the humility, the idea of. There have been so many times. I mean, if we're gonna say things that we reflect on over the last 10 years, there have been so many times we've been sitting in meetings and like saying things and like, you know, interacting and working through difficult topics, right? Like, we've worked through stuff together as elders over the last 10 years. And there have been so many times I just leave a meeting and I think, I don't know why Jim listens to anything we say. Like, I cannot believe that someone with your experience and all the ministry experience you have, how I'm constantly amazed at how humble you've been throughout this process to even allow that kind of unity to function. And I know that you'll deflect it on and say something else and say it's all of us together. But the reality is that a lot of that is your perspective, but also your posture towards, I think, the whole of the church that has allowed us to thrive together as one body and to create that new community that God is doing in and through us. It only comes with not just that perspective, but also that humility. And I just want to just say thank you for that. I mean, that's not what this podcast is for, but I just want to say publicly thank you for that, because I've always been impressed with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you.
You know, I think it's really interesting, because I think as we think about the last 10 years, the church has gone through changes and become really different multiple times in that 10 years. Like, it's not like that was the one shift, right? I think there've been a number of significant shifts, even every couple of years. And so, which gives me a lot of hope for this time of transition and upheaval we're in now, that, oh wait, it's become our expectation. This is what the Lord does. And
just chaos always.
No, but constant change, like constant development.
Yeah.
And
renewal is the word that Jim said earlier.
Well, and that's where I was actually going to, I just want to maybe pile on. I think that there's a undercurrent of the spirit of the church that absolutely has been embodied by you in lots of ways behind the scenes, Jim. That in the midst of all of this change, I mean, we talk constantly about how we want to emulate that kind of humility, flexibility, consistently looking for what God is doing. That's why I feel like that's Jim language, right? I just want to know what God's doing.
Yeah.
And it's shaped, I think, the last 10 years and the culture of the church even more than any of us even realize.
It's if God has his hand on this church, it seems to me that he's going to be saying to us, okay, you've learned that lesson. That's enough. let's change things around, and you learn this lesson. Now it's time for you to start something new, right? Because this is always happening. It's always been happening since I've been here. It happens, I think, individually, and it happens, I think, in a church family in the same way. That, okay, you're good at this now. You got this. New time's coming.
That makes me uneasy. I think and I think that for most of us, like we feel like, okay, I learned those lessons. That was hard.
Yeah.
Went through that. Now let's just kind of settle in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And your willingness and even at times eagerness to invite and welcome that change and that whatever's next with open arms is a huge blessing. I think sets the tone in a lot of different ways.
I mean, in some ways, it's just sanctification, right?
For sure.
On on a corporate level, where we're saying that kind of renewal as a pattern of a Christian's life, God constantly uprooting, transforming, replanting, uprooting, transforming, replanting, is something that I think can happen on a wider scale. But I think that's absolutely true of the last 10 years. You think about Cornerstone Espanol. You think about Cornerstone Farsi that did not exist 10 years ago. And you think about how God developed those language-specific ministries and how that has shaped and reshaped and uprooted and challenged and caused so much complexity for us to be a unified family together in unbelievable ways. I think about God, the way God has developed a heart and a passion for foster care and adoption within the church. Something that was different people's hearts. Pastor Scott, like you kind of started that in some ways on the Shoreline side, and you have God has just like worked through so many people and just developed a culture of loving and caring for orphans. And I just think about all the ways that God has just done so many things over 10 years, that constant renewal, that constantly like you're not comfortable. Like you're not comfortable because things are always changing. And your perspective, Jim, is that's good. That's how it should be. Yeah. And I think it's really closely tied to sanctification. It's tied to God keeping us on our toes, wanting to teach us new things. God saying, this is a living and active relationship, and I'm going to bring that kind of transformation through changing things up and shaking things up and bringing out a renewal that can only come through these kinds of circumstances, God-ordained circumstances. And I think it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing to reflect on for the last 10 years.
Yeah. One of the things that stands out to me, even as you talk about those things, was 10 years ago, I think barely any of those were our vision.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like 10 years ago we were like, okay, here's the things the church is going to care about. Here's the ways we need to grow. Here's the things that are going to develop. Here's the new ministries that need to be started. Here's the thing, and then we look back over the last 10 years and be like, what a success. Look, we did it all. It's not like that at all. Right. What we've done, what's happened over the last 10 years is just around every bend, we've discovered more of what God is doing. And some that was familiar and we had glimpses of, and it's not completely foreign to the passions and desires we have, but what he's built is, and the ways he's directed us, I don't think any of us could have sitting around the table 10 years ago could have even imagined. And he keeps doing that over and over and over again, in a way that, I mean, to your point, Matt, it's sanctification writ large, right? It's this the transformative product of the life of the church.
Now, you had in the last year where we've had to change the way we actually do church because of the pandemic, and that's yet another way that our spiritual life gets impacted. We can't be together as a congregation. And so now how do I grow watching something on my laptop, not meeting with my community group, except maybe also on my laptop, everything begins to change about how I feel about this personal relationship with other people who also believe. New era, one more change, and that's just the most recent, I think. So.
Yeah. What about you, B? What stands out to you about when you think back at
The last 10 years? Gosh.
Did you have hair 10 years ago?
That's a good question. I think I did for like a year.
Quinn was born in 2011, right?
Yeah.
So
That's how I marked time. Well, Harper was born when we planted.
Yeah,
which is kind of funny.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then Quinn.
Yeah.
So that's how I keep track.
So, yeah, I mean, you went from 0 kids to 5 in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
that
definitely
may be
personal
part of it,
change.
but-
No, I think, looking back at 10 years, I don't get a lot of specific kind of memories or topics.
Mhm.
I think a lot about our different, like the different parts of our family that primarily speak different languages. And I think about how there's a way of looking at that from the outside and going, oh, you started 2 new ministries, like the way it's like, oh, cool. Like, yeah, so new ministries cropped up over the course of a decade. And not realizing when you're in the church, I think that reshaped our identity as a church. Like that changed who we are, to grow and expand and watch the family shift and change. That when I think about 10 years, and to me, there's a big thread through this entire conversation, which is, like Jim said, like the way that the church is us being caught up in what God is doing and wants to do, and not in what we're doing and want to do. Even if you like it, and I've liked a lot of this. I am just so. I've talked to you guys, individually and privately about how kind of over the moon I am about this church, and I don't know. There aren't words to describe the level of gratefulness I have and kind of the contentment and joy that I find in being a part of this with you guys, with the people in our church, the church family. It's just, yeah, it's phenomenal. And a lot of that is caught up in just watching God do stuff with us and seeing how the things that he's doing are drawing us into things that we couldn't have planned, but not just because we can't see far enough, but because our desires aren't strong enough for how good he wants it to be. And that's a pretty phenomenal thing. So I think about that a lot. We can tell stories too, but that's the thing that I think about a lot.
I mean, I think that's the hard part, maybe in some ways for something like this, a reflection on 10 years, is we have this unique perspective as pastors of seeing really like people being changed by the power of the gospel, the power of the Holy Spirit moving in their lives. People who don't know Christ come to know Christ. People who are struggling find comfort and hope. People who are hurting find peace. People who are addicted and people who are unable to stop something find victory through Christ. I mean, you see people's lives change. You see people going from immaturity to maturity, and you see a lot of brokenness as well. I mean, we in our perspective, you see a lot of those real gritty life experiences, and it's not big and flashy necessarily, right? It's not because we had 1,000 people at this event or we had whatever. Most of the beauty, when you talk about just the love you have for the church, you're thinking of like people and the way that God is moving in their lives and the way that God, I mean, unbelievably uses us to bless people and make an impact on someone's life who maybe was going to be a train wreck, and God uses you to speak something into their lives, and they their whole life is transformed because of how God speaks in and through you. Those are the things that just kind of stop me in my tracks, and they're not big and they're not flashy. They're not something that you can easily Instagram or whatever it is. They are things that are on the ground, the Holy Spirit working in people's lives, that we just sit back and think it's unbelievable how much work God is doing here in and through people, and it's such an incredible privilege to be a part of it, and it gives us that posture of just I love this church. I love what God is doing. We don't think it's perfect. We know it's not perfect, but God is just moving massively in the lives of people, transforming and doing amazing things. And we're just so blessed to be one part of what God is doing.
Yeah. That's what I feel like keeps ringing in my head as well. That there's, even as you were talking, B, there's the things that come to my mind when I reflect over the last 10 years. That they're people, right? They're stories, and there's people in kind of different situations and different categories in a sense. And it's not like one is my favorite over the others. They're like, it's not
Me?
like having
Is it
favorite
me?
kids.
Am I your favorite?
But you're like my kids. I whisper to all 4 of my kids at different times, "You're my favorite."
Do you?
I do. I do.
Have you ever whispered to me that?
I try to be a little bit more selective.
Oh.
Among the elders.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
So, but some people, like, I mean, I think some people in our church family now were with us 10 years ago. Like they were part of Shoreline. They were with us 12, 14, 15 years ago.
Or First Baptist.
Some longer than that. I'm just talking about personally,
Yeah.
right? Like, for my, like, there's some of these long-term relationships that are still a part of this church family now. And that's meaningful and unique, and there's a specialness to those relationships. There's also people that we've met in the last 10 years, met in the last year, right? That the Lord has brought and overlapped our lives in this place that in ways that, you didn't expect, you can't expect. And it's an incredible blessing. I mean, the bonds that continue to be grown are overwhelming. It's such a privilege to get to experience that.
It's hard for me to imagine life without aura. Like, honestly, it's such like larger than life, and so like I just have so much joy. Like, it's my life without aura feels so empty. Like 10 years ago, I didn't know aura. What was I doing with my life?
You should whisper to him that he's your favorite.
Well, I very publicly say he's my favorite.
But then I think about all those who have been with us for a season and have moved on, right? Yeah. And I mean, when I think about the last 10 years, there are more people that have left the church than are in the church now.
They've moved to different places. They
Totally.
haven't left like the church.
Totally. And
just making sure people don't think like.
Well, what I was
like
gonna
constantly hemorrhaging.
I was going to follow it up. Well, we are constantly hemorrhaging.
No, I mean to other churches in the area.
Well, no, that's not what's
what I'm
happening.
saying.
Yeah, but we're constantly sending
every time
people
I
out.
preach.
Yeah, that's right.
Mass
Really
exodus.
Yeah, we're constantly sending people out. We're constantly seeing the Lord give people a season with us together, and then when I think about, man, these are just dear relationships to me, people that I love deeply, that aren't here anymore, that left because God was calling them to another place, another season, something else. That when I think back about the 10 years, like it's not just the relationships of those that are here, it's all these relationships, and that's both exciting and sweet, and also bittersweet. There's a part of that when I think about the last 10 years. There's a relational, if I'm honest, there's a relational heartache to that too, even for people that leave well, because you love one another and you can't wait to be together again in heaven, if not before. And of course, like anyway, like there are people that leave not well. But when I think about the last 10 years, I mean, that's such a massive minority, right? That's not the right way to put that. That is such a small amount of people that have gone and have not left well, and those situations are heartbreaking too. But when I think about, and particularly heartbreaking, but when I think about the people that God has woven together in the story of the last 10 years and the different parts they've played, like that to me, and I think that's what you're probably hearing from all of us, that's the reflection on the last 10 years. It's some of it's organizational, some of it's programs, but we've lived the last 10 years as a spiritual family, not just as an organization together. And God keeps, he's been so gracious to continue to see that over and over again.
Yes, hopefully it continues. Yeah. I just trust God's hand on this geographical location. And the funny thing is that we don't know. I think the future of churches on a piece of ground is precarious, perhaps. But what God is doing now in this place, in these buildings, just stuns me. And but we also have this outreach around the world and people that we connect with and support and help. I think so much of ARU, which until we merged was not a part of what we were doing, and I think it's very much a part of what we're doing now, and powerfully so. It's around the world, and that kind of outreach. Also, I think God's grace, those kinds of connections are. I'm just awed at that.
Absolutely, and I think that whether it's that, and the transformation that's come from that, I think of the number of people both even around the world through connections that 10 years ago didn't know Jesus.
Yeah.
Right. That weren't walking with Jesus. That the Lord has allowed us to get to be small parts of both globally and just in so many people here, so many people that are a part of our church now, so many people that have connected and come through in different times, and it's overwhelming. It's humbling to get to see.
And it occurs to me that we probably should look at this from the point of view of where First Baptist was. That there are future, let's just say, changes. So I don't know that we need another merge, but we might. I mean, there are future plans that God has for us that we need to be open to, and not only just sit here and say, we've done exciting things, but to say, all right, maybe God is saying, all right, that's enough of that. I need you to now do something different in a new way, and we move to that calling. I think that what I saw when we merged was that sort of sense that, well, I thought we had it right and I liked what we were doing, but we need to make sure that we're not on the back end of that happening again. It's kind of like the office buildings flooding every 4 or 5 years, just so we can remodel. I think that's God's hand on us, so we can remodel our office buildings.
So I think that's such a great point, Jim. I want to let's think about that a little bit, because I mean, if the last 10 years tells us anything, it's that we have no idea what's coming in the next 10 years.
No idea.
That being said, what excites you guys the most about the next 10 years?
Brian could get his hair back.
We have no idea what's coming.
No idea. Do you know Ara knows a guy in Turkey?
We've talked.
Real cheap.
He is very excited for me to come with him.
$200 to get a full head of hair.
$200.
Hopefully more than that. I mean, not more than $200.
Yeah.
More than
just the hair coming back.
More hair.
But
so maybe, and maybe not just what excites you most, but what excites you as you look forward in the next 10 years to the next 10 years? What excites you about that?
Yeah. I would like to see us do more. We have reformed this church, I don't know, half a dozen times in 10 years, it looks like to me. And I would like to see us maybe reach out with our model to invite some other churches to do the same thing, so that we not only do this, but we somehow model this or encourage others to do more of what First Baptist did than what you when you came in with a new church group. It was fresh and new. I think it was exciting for many of the congregation of that church that they had nurseries for the kids. They had actually had a place to put them. You know? But I think the sense that we could maybe be a part of teaching, of showing, of coming alongside a church that needed to do that, and say we can mentor you in how to do that, to merge with maybe a growing church, a younger church, and give your ministry away in some sense to form a new one would be very exciting to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's church revitalization, right? Like there's a sense of like
That's the word.
helping church revitalize.
What he said.
Yeah, but I think maybe connected to that is, from the beginning, everything that God does is multiplying. He's always multiplying his gospel. It's Colossians 1. It's exactly what the gospel does. It grows and multiplies in and among us and then multiplies out from us. And so, I love the idea of looking at future pastors, elders, ministry leaders, missionaries who want to be raised up and sent out from from this church community. Maybe some going to help revitalize a church that is already in existence. Maybe some to go plant churches. Maybe some to be missionaries in unreached places. Maybe some to be ministry leaders in different contexts. But to carry the sort of the same. To be marked, or I'm going to change that sentence, not to carry the same, but to be so indelibly touched by what God does to them here that they carry that with them wherever they go. And I think there's something really cool about that. You said this earlier about how a lot of people have left, right? A lot of people have moved to other places, and it's bittersweet. What's interesting is we kind of did have that vision 12, 15 years ago. We were like, look, West LA, it's a transient place. People come in, they're here for a few years, and they move. Let's invest in them everything we can while they're here.
I just didn't expect actually liking them.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Most of them. Anyways, if you're listening to this, you have to know we love you.
We do.
We're
That is the
joking.
problem. Like, it's,
Most of you. The point is that enough?
that's enough.
Okay.
I started it.
I guess
I'm
the point that I'm kind of saying is like there's something really compelling about this idea of giving it away that is exactly what God has done in the church from the very beginning. And the way that manifests itself programmatically can be church plants, can be church revitalization, can be missionaries. I'm so excited for the people I see now in the church, wherever they are, to be raised up, invested in, discipled, hear and love Christ, and go out all over the world to represent him in whatever capacity. I think about, I don't know, okay, so here's a crazy thought. I think about, let's say, something radically changes in Iran, and Christians are allowed to evangelize there, and a bunch of people go and plant a church from here to Iran. Like, that's crazy, but in 10 years, who knows what God will do?
Yeah.
Or there's people here who have a heart to be missionaries in East Asia. Raise them, send them out, see them on the field representing Christ in a hard, difficult, closed country, and honor the Lord as they do that. And 20 years from now, hear their stories as they come back and say, I was formed here in this place in West LA, and I was sent out from here to carry this message of the gospel to this faraway place. And here's what God has done here. Here's how he's multiplied that over here. It's just such a beautiful picture of the way that God works. So different than what we would do. I would prefer to hoard everybody and hold them all here and build up Cornerstone West LA into some, juggernaut. But what God loves to do is raise up, send out, multiply, raise up, send out, multiply, raise up, send out, multiply. And that vision of investing for a time and then being sent out and carrying that with you is such a beautiful one to me that I would love to see that over the next 10 years in particular.
And I would hope that vision would be caught by someone listening to this and begin to pray that very prayer. May it be me. May it be me.
Absolutely. And I think I will say a lot of people come here to our church, to West LA, and they're not necessarily thinking that. And so you might be out there listening to this podcast, and you might go, that's not really why I'm here. Like, I'm just trying to survive in LA because this city is crazy. And I'm trying to hold on to my faith. But we don't want you just to survive here. We want you to thrive. And we want you to know that God has huge plans for you, whether they're here or whether they're somewhere else. And we want you to understand that he's inviting you to take those steps to be part of what he's doing in his kingdom in this world.
It makes me think of, as you were talking, I was thinking 10 years ago. I was thinking about all those who've become, even just as an example, those who've become pastors and elders in the last 10 years here. And 10 years ago,
including me, for the record.
that's true. That's
You
true.
three were pastors as we merged, but I was not.
You were not. When were you like ordained? Was
August.
it was 2 months later, 3 months later?
4 months later,
4 months later.
August.
But who's counting?
I mean, I'm just saying it was August
August
2011. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So, but it makes me think of all those who've become. I think at least half of them weren't even thinking about being a pastor ever 10 years ago, if not more. Over half of them, the people that are getting sent out and church planting, I don't think any of them were thinking about church planting 10 years ago.
Nope. Pastor Jose was an architect.
Yeah. And so much has transformed. God has done so much. It makes me think of those that are listening to this right now, Jim, and so many are like, wait, no, they're not talking about me.
Yeah, I got a career.
Yeah. But I don't know. And this is what the Lord does. He surprises us every step of the way. And I'm just so excited to get to discover what he has in store, because I think not only can those specific people probably not imagine it right now, we can't even. And which I think goes back to the theme of the fact that it wasn't our vision over the last 10 years, and it's not going to be our vision over the next 10 that shapes this. We're just going to keep trying to follow what the Lord's doing, and that really is exciting.
Yeah, I think if you remove the dream or this is the way life works from your mindset, and you open it up to, okay, God, this is the way it works here, but what do you want to do with me? I mean, that's essentially what happened to me. I had a career in government work and was very good at it, and began to realize that I wasn't just being edged out; I was being called out. And I was very resistant. I'm exactly what you described. Yeah. And then I wound up doing this, and stunned that I was doing this. Still am.
Every day.
Yeah, pretty much. So it ain't just people out there; it's us.
Are you cautiously pessimistic for the next 10 years?
Exactly. Yeah, about my success in the career.
No, not you specifically.
Success in this career.
Go back to government work.
Jim, most people don't know this, but Jim was the mayor of Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's right. It's a long time ago. Yordi was my name back then. Nobody even knows who that is.
It was
anymore.
a tumultuous time.
Yes, it was indeed.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, you get last dibs. What do you think of when you think of the 10 years ahead?
10 years ahead.
Yeah. Sorry.
Exciting things. I mean, I think there's a beauty to God and a care from God and a depth to God that we have yet to experience. I think there's more of that. And that sometimes shows up in the actions we take and the shape of the church and the sending that we're talking about. That's all part of it. It sometimes shows up in a lot of hardship and difficulty and struggle. It sometimes shows up in the joy of things going well and blessing. But I think that we have not even come close to exhausting who God is in himself and for us. And so it's not about just expanding, what we're already doing. It's about, the thing I'm excited for is that, but it's how that's caught up in him showing us more of himself and us kind of constantly looking around and going, we didn't know this. We knew, but we didn't know. Like, we knew this richness was there, but we didn't know. We knew this care was there, but we didn't know. We knew this beauty was there, but we didn't know. Not just individually, but together. It's always been together here for us. And I don't know what shape that'll take, but I know it will happen. And the idea of 10 years more of us together in our various configurations, people coming and going and sent and who knows, but us together being able to look back and have, I get the vision sometimes, the image of, of kind of being in the foyer and God calling us into the living room. Yeah, there's more rooms. There's more closeness. There's more of him that he wants to give and share, and he wants us to enjoy.
I thought you were talking about the sanctuary foyer.
I did too. I was picturing him as being
Beautiful
a foyer.
foyer.
It's beautiful.
You know,
now.
living room.
Do
I was like, where's
homes
the
have?
living room?
Yeah. Do homes have foyer? Do you go from your foyer to a living room?
That's a good question.
I mean,
I mean, mine doesn't.
you could consider like the 8 square feet in front of the door to be
foyer?
like a foyer.
I'm gonna start referring to it that way.
You kind of have a slight wall.
These 2 feet here.
Would you
Yeah.
like,
foyer.
would you
Using
like
the
to step into the foyer?
My studio apartment foyer is right
That's
here. This is the living room.
Just let me
This
sit
is the
right-
bedroom.
So speaking of all this, I actually need to leave because I have to go teach an intro class for the future people. Probably someone in this intro class is going to be 10 years from now an elder at the church, and we'll be sitting in the same room and saying, hey, remember that podcast that had 1 million listens back in April 2021?
This room will be flooded by then and will have been remodeled. But yes.
But only if you get to go teach the class, right? Otherwise, they won't be.
Otherwise, it
saying
won't happen.
Yeah.
It's like the butterfly effect. If I don't go now,
that. Yeah.
That's right.
They were saying, I hate this job at Vaughn's Market bagging groceries. Only 10 years ago, somebody said to me, you need to go
Well,
say it.
that perspective, Leonard's perspective is just.
Well, so
Just
this actually
awful.
this brings well
No,
this brings us full. This brings it. He's like, no, but this brings us full circle because I mean to wrap us up to your point, Brian. When I think about the next 10 years, we've been. I mean, you and I have been pastoring, and Matt, we've been together for 15 years. Mm-hmm. This feels like, in some senses, a point of life and a point of quote unquote career or time together that that all that change, all that discovery is behind us, right? Like that was for when we were young. Matt's literally leaving, but he's like climbing over the table
A parkour exit.
over Jim's back.
That's right, I'm still alive. Go ahead.
No, but it and again, I think the reason, or one of the significant reasons why individually and as a church, we're not settling in. We're not just like, okay, we've established it now, so now let's just kind of ride it out. But we're expectantly looking both for the things that are going to change on the outside, but also for the depth and the knowledge of God that you describe, Brian, is because even just in interacting with you, hearing decade after decade, the story, Jim, of the Lord doing that and continuing to do it, and seeing the Lord even now continuing to do it in your life, is something that keeps our eyes focused there, that keeps us looking for what else he's doing, where he's calling us deeper in, and that's one of the sweetest joys of being a part of a multi-generational church, because it's also not simply encapsulated in you, right? There's many other relationships where we get to see that.
Yes.
And for those who are younger than you, like us, and for those that are significantly younger than us, what an incredible blessing.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
So, anyways, thank you guys. Anything else you want to leave us with, Jim?
No.
Okay. Matt's gone.
The electricity left the room.
Can you just feel it? It's just, we should end this. Now, well, thank you for listening. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for being a part of this journey with us. We deeply love you, and it is such a privilege to get to walk this part of this journey together in this local church. And so hope that both gives you an appreciation for even just a bit of what the Lord's done in all of us over the last 10 years, and even just an opportunity to reflect in what he's done in your life over the last 10 years, and that it might give you a renewed expectation for what's ahead this year, for what's ahead in the next 10 years. Who knows what forms it's going to take, but he's inviting us deeper in, and what a privilege, what a gift to get to explore that with him.
And we're praying for you.
We are, absolutely. Well, thanks for listening. We will see you virtually or in person on Sunday.